Now that we have leveling up well taken care of, let's add something new to the mix. So in this tutorial, we are going to be adding a mana attack and mana system onto our character. So mana is something that's used in many RPG games, and that allows you to cast spells and use for different unique abilities. So let's start building that out. And to build that out, I'm actually going to be using the beginnings of Multi-Brain. Now, Multi-Brain is something that we'll be doing a bit more and more of as we go through this tutorial series. It's a concept that is easy to implement, maybe a bit harder to wrap your head around, but as long as you follow along, you'll be able to sort of understand what we're doing. So I want my character to be able to, for now, just shoot a fireball, and when they shoot a fireball, that takes up some amount of mana cost, and they can only shoot fireballs when they have a certain amount of mana left. So to do that, I'm actually going to bring in another logic cube. So let's go ahead and grab a new logic cube from here. And we're going to have this right by our player. So let's actually move the player back so that we can sort of have this right by them. We are going to title this logic cube Mana. And to keep things a bit easier to understand, this is where coloring of logic cubes can be really useful. So I'm going to color this mana logic cube red, just so it's sort of it kind of looks different from all the others. Now, I can actually do that with this level up logic cube that we were using before. This is something that, let's also color this red so that sort of everything that does something to the player is now colored red. So great. So now we have sort of a nice color coding to see that anything that's red does things to the player, and these white things are goblin spawners currently. All right, so let's jump into this blank mana brain. So I want to be able to add a new attack into this brain and then call that attack into my own player's brain. And that is what is called multi-brain, when you have behaviors inside of one brain and you actually call that brain or bring that brain into another one so that a object is running more than one brain. It's really easy for an object to stack multiple brains, and it's really useful so that you can segment things more easily. So I actually first want to, though, bring out the thing that our character will actually be shooting. So he's going to be doing fireball attacks. So let's go ahead and find a fireball here. So this is going to be the projectile he's shooting. Now this is great. It's great to be able to bring out your effects here that you're going to be using for spells so that you can change their appearance, their size, do a lot of things to them. But the most important thing is you need to make this a template. And you'll need to make this a template too. I'm not going to make the mana logic cube a template now though, so you can understand why you really need to make this a template. But let's start with just making the fireball template. So we're going to go into Edit, Properties, Brain, and turn template to true for that fireball. So that's great. Now I believe we still have in our player left over a Y attack. Yes, so we have in our player when Y do shoot. So let's remove that because we're going to be doing something different for our Y attack in our mana brain. And also while we're in here, let's create a new meter system so that we can see what our current mana is. So let's go ahead and do display meter here. So we go to appearance, display, choose display meter. And for the number we're going to be displaying in there, we're going to do a number variable. So we're going to go here to number variable, and we're going to enter a new one. And the number we're going to be tracking is something that we're going to call mana. Now let's add a new code tile here. Go to modifiers, and you are going to see this modifier for max, and that is setting what the sort of max of that meter is. And that's really important, or else a meter doesn't look like it's going down or going up because it's always just tracking what the current number is. So we want to set a max of, let's bring in another number variable here, and we are going to create this and call it max mana. And then we are also going to display this screen top left, and let's add in another modifier here where we actually make this meter blue. That's kind of typical. You see that in a lot of RPG games where the mana system is shown with a blue meter instead of, a red meter for health. So you can do that by going to values and choosing color and going to colors, and then you can sort of choose what color this meter is. So we're going to choose blue here. You could have created your own custom color, but we're fine with blue for now. So great, that's going to display a meter where it's looking at their mana number, and it has sort of the max of the meter is max mana. But these two have not been set yet. So we need to go ahead and set that inside of our logic cube, what mana is, what max mana is, and so on and so forth. So inside of here, we are going to have a once tile, and under here, this is where we're going to be setting our mana and max mana numbers. So we're going to stay at level 1. Our character has a base mana amount of, let's say, 20. So we enter a new number here, 20. And we always want the max mana to be the same as mana, because that sort of max mana is going to be just a static number, and this mana number is a thing that fluctuates up and down as you're using spells. So max mana we want to be equal to the exact same as mana. That's going to be really important. You always want those two to start out at the same. So the next step within here is to go ahead and add in our Y attack into the logic cube. So we're going to say when Y is pressed, then let's create some child lines here. We are going to do, under combat, you'll find shoot, and we want them to shoot the kind of projectile that's used for this magical spell. So we are going to create an object variable, and I'm going to get into explaining object variables in just a bit, but just go to the object variable section, choose new object variable, and we're just going to call this object variable magic for now. So when Y is pressed, shoot magic, and also we are going to take our mana, so I'm copying that, and we are going to decrease that or decrement that by a new number variable that we are going to call mana cost. So we're adding quite a few number variables here. We have mana, max mana, mana cost. These are all being added, and Multibrain is being used because we want to get to a point where later on in future tutorials we might have multiple magic spells that we can switch between. So right now we want to keep it to just one, but we want to set up the architecture so that it's much easier to add 20 different magic spells you can switch between, or 10 different magic spells, or so on and so forth. And this system will let us do that. So it's always great to start out by doing the more complex, harder to grasp things, and it makes your life so much easier later on down the road. So we have when Y pressed, shoot magic, and mana decrement by mana cost. So both of these are undefined things. They mean nothing. So still, we go into test, and I do have a meter. It's currently at 0, and I press Y, and nothing is happening. So we have a lot of undefined things still. So that's fine. We're going to go ahead and fix that. And we're going to fix that by having a new page within our Mana Brain. So this new page, we're going to call it at Fireball, because that's the first spell we're going to have here. And we want to have very simple things happen on this page. So when, go and add one of those page entered again. And again, this just looks at running whatever lines of code are underneath of it, just the one time as soon as you enter into the page. So this is now where we're going to set our object variable. So an object variable is a variable that basically stores an in-world object. So we're going to go here. We're going to choose that magic object variable that I set the previous page. We're going to set that equal to, use our in-world picker here that you can find under objects, and now you can choose anything in the world. So for instance, I could say that it's going to be equal to goblins, and now I shoot goblins. Or it's equal to the fireball, and now we shoot fireballs. So we want to do fireballs. I don't think we want to shoot goblins at this point. But we're going to choose the fireball, confirm selection, and so now the magic is going to be equal to the fireball, which is called in here FX Gizmo. That's kind of what all of our effects are called. And the reason why we're setting a magic variable or a object variable called magic right here is because this allows us to more easily set what the projectile is that you're going to be shooting. So if we had, say, another page where you shoot ice pellets, then we could set magic to be equal to an icicle. And then right here, when you shoot magic, it's just going to pull that object variable based on whatever you set it as. So it makes things really easy for switching between. The second thing we need to set is, you probably guessed it, the mana cost. What's the actual cost of mana that this thing takes to cast? So we're going to say that the mana cost for this spell, this fireball, we're going to say this is equal to 10. So we start out with a max mana of 20, and we're going to have a mana cost of 10. So that's great, and that's actually all we need to do on this fireball page. Very simple stuff, but it's great to segment these out into pages so that kind of every spell has its own different page. You can do different things. Now I need to go ahead and call this. So for now, we are just going to say under this ones tile, we're going to say on the do side, we're going to go over to brains, call page, and then we're going to go to values, text, go to text again, and find fireball. And so just as soon as this starts, then it calls the page fireball. As we get further along in other tutorial series, you might expect us to change kind of what page we call based on what spell we have. But that's good and great. So we have that all hooked up here. We have that working. So when Y is pressed, we should now be able to shoot magic. So we go into test, and we press shoot, and you see we're not shooting, but there are fireballs coming out of random place. And that is because fireballs are coming from our logic cube. And that's because our logic cube has not been set as a template. But fireballs aren't coming from our character because our character has not had multi-brains added to him yet. He hasn't had this new brain added into his brain yet. So there's two things going wrong right here. Let's go back and edit. Very first thing we want to do is make this mana thing a template. So go to properties, brain, template. That's going to stop that thing from firing. Then we go into our player, and we go all the way up to the top, and under once, this is where we add a new line, child line under once, and we're going to use a new code tile. So you go over to the brains folder, and then you're going to see this multi-brain folder. You open up that, and then you have this ability to add a brain onto this character. That's exactly what we want to do, because we want to add the mana brain. So let's choose add brain. Then let's go to objects, in world picker, pick our mana brain right here, select that, and confirm that selection. And another important thing that I'm not going to touch on right here, but it's just great for management, is with multi-brain, you have a choice to set channels and slots that every brain goes towards. This is just a useful way to organize stuff and to know where stuff currently is. So we're going to go ahead and use this. This is going to be meaningless now because we only have one extra brain running on our character. But still, let's go ahead and set it because this is kind of a best practice. So we're going to say that we're going to add this mana brain to a overall channel. So we're going to set this channel to be equal to, you can set either a number or you can set a piece of text. So we can say channel 1, channel 10, channel 28, whatever you want to set it as. Or I'm going to actually choose text, and we're going to set the channel to be attack. And the channel is, think of a channel as the overarching container of multiple brains, and then a slot within a channel is the container of just one brain in that channel of multiple brains. And then slots can also be either numbered, so we can say slot 1, slot 8, slot whatever you want, or they can also be text as well. So we're going to actually use text for this, and we're going to set it to slot magic. So this brain has now been added to our character in a channel, in a slot. This channel and slot are pretty meaningless right now because we only have one brain running, so but it's a great best practice. So let's jump back into test. And now what you see is our meter is full. It's actually blue, and let's go ahead and press Y, and we're shooting. But we're shooting and we're not regaining our mana, so not too useful. And also I can still keep on firing even though I don't have any mana left. So now we need to work on the resource management side of things. And these are pretty simple to do. So first thing we want to do is we want to add in the ability to regenerate our mana. So what we're just going to look at is when our mana is less than our max mana, we're going to have a child line here, and then we are going to say we're going to increase mana. So we're going to say mana increment by, let's just say for now, 1. And you can also set on this when side, in this child line, a countdown timer with a loop. So you can say, let's say countdown timer 2 in frames loop. What this does, countdown timer 2 in frames loop, there are 30 frames per second when things run in Project Spark. So this is saying this thing runs 15 times per second. So every 2 frames of those 30 frames per second, your mana is going to increase by 1, and it loops it. So this again fires every 2 frames. So as soon as your mana is less than your max mana, every 2 frames, your mana is going to increase by 1. You can also make it, I kind of actually want to have it every single frame, our mana increases by 1. So that's going to be mana that increases pretty fast, actually. So that'll be, you're basically going to be able to increase your mana by 30 in 1 second. So what I want to do actually is, let's, instead of increasing my mana by 1, let's just increase it by 0.2 every single frame, and that'll make it so that it takes a bit longer for me to increase my mana all the way back up to my max mana. The other thing we want to do is we want to make sure that when Y is pressed, nothing is going to happen if my mana is lower than my mana cost that I need. So we're going to have under Y is pressed, we're just going to look for when mana is greater than or equal to mana cost. Then we're going to have these 2 child lines underneath that. So when Y is pressed and also my mana is greater than or equal to my mana cost, then I'm able to shoot, and then it takes down my mana by my mana cost. And that is where we start to have sort of the magic regeneration. So let's go back in here and let's go ahead and shoot some magic, and now you'll see that every time I shoot magic, it goes down and it starts increasing again. And I also can't shoot magic if my mana is below 10 right now. So this is perfect. This is exactly what I wanted, and this is the beginnings of a mana system. We're going to touch on this a bit later when we get into adding unique skills and new abilities as we level up.